right, we got the gang all here. It's gonna be fun. Everyone's remote. We got a guy in Germany. It's like 1 a.m. over there, hanging tough. Someone's playing music. That's also exciting. Who is that? Which one of you is playing? Is that Evan? No. One of you guys is playing music. But anyways, let's go ahead and get started with this. So we're going to redraft the NFL. Oh, I figured out what it is. It's the YouTube stream was giving me a commercial. There we go.
All right. That's a rookie mistake. You gotta mute that, George.
Look, I shared the whole Google sheet for the draft with everyone. So
George,
that was a
George,
great
do you have like the Zoom filter on making you look all gauzy and pretty?
No, I'm just sunburned. That's what that is. It's been hot, man. So hey, let's do this. As people are coming in, I am really curious what your guys' preparation for this was. We're gonna do 4 rounds. We're going to redraft the NFL. Every player is on the table. Contracts are not a factor. We can only take one quarterback. How did you guys prepare for this? Josh, why don't you start us off?
I did about 10 minutes of research. I read an article on the PFF written by a couple guys named Timo and Kevin about quarterbacks. And then I went and saw my doctor. So that's about the extent of my entire preparatory time. And I think y'all are going down. That's really the large and small of it.
Evan, what'd you do? Did you build a whole ranking?
I did a lot. I started last night. I didn't want to embarrass myself in front of you really, really smart people. And I spent probably 4 or 5 hours on it today. Building like a top 150 players, because we're going to end up drafting 128 total, because it is, we're drafting for 32 NFL teams, and it's 4 rounds, 2 of which I think we're going to broadcast. So I wanted to put some time into it. I knew Herms would do almost nothing in terms of preparation.
Oh man, Eric, what'd you do?
I did a little bit of what Josh did, which was look at the QB, the Beijing QB rankings. And then aside from that, I took some of our WAR metrics from the past, 3-4 seasons, and did a little bit of work to try to see, projecting them forward a little bit. So, I'm somewhere in the middle of the interval that is Josh and Evan's preparation, but that's where I'm at.
Kev, what about you? You kind of look like you're in a cave, by the way. Are you in a cave?
Yeah. I'm in. Like I said, this is the old wooden house my great grandpappy built. No, I'm doing the research right now as we're speaking. So how long are we into this? That'll tell you how much research I've done.
You wrote a pretty good article on quarterbacks, so that should take you through like pick 20, 25.
Yeah, well, Timo really did all of that, but I'm reading it for the first time right now.
Timo, you're wearing a shirt, and I was expecting a Jameis jersey.
Oh no, not today.
Really? Okay. All right. Well, I'm anticipating a hot battle for Jameis Winston. Let's get started. So if you are following along, there is a link to the Google sheet that we're going to be drafting in. Hopefully I've made it so that no one nefarious can go in and actually edit a pick. And we're going to be rotating through. I'm on the clock. I am picking for the Bengals. And I'm not going to take Drew Lock despite the current upward trend. I'm going to go with Patrick Mahomes, and I don't think it's particularly close, although Key and Fahey might disagree, which is kind of hilarious. So Mahomes is a Bengal. Not bad.
The first Key and Fahey mention in under, 9.5 minutes cashes, so way to go.
Yeah, that was a lock, though. That was a lock. I mean, we're going to be talking about quarterbacks for the next hour or so. There's no chance he didn't come up. So it's to me now, I guess, and the question becomes, for my mind, because you're looking at the players available. There's a lot of older quarterbacks who are quite good, or at least have been good. But to me, it comes down to 2 players. It comes down to Lamar and Russell, both in systems that are going to ask them to support a running game. Russell, he needs the running game, so that's kind of the tiebreaker for me. Yeah, he can't survive without a good running game, and so I think that that's definitely to his detriment, whereas Lamar is his own running game. And so that's why he becomes the second overall pick in this amazing draft of ours.
Wow, Josh, you made my decision a lot easier because I was ready at 3 picking for the Detroit Lions. I'm thinking, okay, Wilson, Mahomes come off the board. And I'm like, do I have to make this tough decision between like Breeze, Rodgers, Ryan? And I was going to go with Lamar at 3, which so we're on the similar wavelength. But I don't have to make that decision anymore because I'm going to go with Russell Wilson now that he's landed in my lap.
Nice. Wow.
I had all those guys in my top 4. The fourth member of my top 4 is Deshaun Watson, who
Another good one.
Has really overcome a lot of factors working against him in Houston. The really bad offensive line play. I think he contributes plenty on his own to his high sack totals, but I think that we could all agree that the offensive line play, at least until the sort of the stretch run of last season, has been really, really, really problematic in Houston. So he's overcome that, and he's overcome bad coaching and poor roster building in Houston. I mean, at his core, I think that Bill O'Brien is a run, pass coach. This past year, they had the Texans threw on 1st and 10 at the 8th highest rate in the NFL, and he's been even higher before that. And I think that Deshaun Watson has been able to overcome a lot of adversity. He's been a winning quarterback consistently going back to college. He's been a really high pedigree player when he was coming out of high school on to becoming, the number 12 overall pick in the NFL draft. And I think that he is a player that has shown the ability to elevate his team, and he's only 25 years old. And, that's something that I feel like I can bank on when we're in this little 5-year window, that I think he's one of the best 4 options to start my team with. And he goes to the Giants.
Yeah, what a pick for the Giants. Man, they've been struggling. They get Deshaun Watson. That's kind of awesome.
How can you pass on Chase Young here?
Because he doesn't play quarterback.
Right. Timo's
is a huge quarterback guy, right? So he's just messing with me, right?
Timo's his sense of humor is a little dry, but you'll get used to it.
Okay, I think we'll probably clash a little bit until then, but hopefully I understand it at some point.
Who's up now?
I think it's Mr. Cole.
Kevin.
All right, it's me here. I'm going to say not just because I'm doing it. I'm going to say this is the most difficult early pick here. I think if you ask most people, the default would be what we saw 1 through 4, perhaps not in that exact order, although likely in that exact order. So here I'm thinking about a couple of different things. I mean, I guess you could go a couple of different ways. Youth versus guys who are a bit older. Better quarterbacks may be available who are a bit older. If you want to go younger, you have Dak Prescott is available. If you Carson Wentz, who's not as young but is available, and then Kyler Murray is probably the other guy where people would entertain taking him at this point. So anyway, that's a long roundabout way of saying that I'm going to go ahead and go super young, go with Kyler Murray, and then if he busts, I'm just going to turn this into a tanking franchise.
Wow,
my man.
Man, that is shocking. Wow,
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I mean, look, he went after Drew Lock in the 4-letter networks draft a couple days ago, and now he's 5th in ours. Holy buckets!
Carson Wentz, Dak Prescott, Matt Ryan, all on the board.
I mean, there's no one you're really in love with. I mean, I can't see anyone making a super strong argument for those other guys. I mean, you can definitely lean towards one of them. So I'm just going upside here.
I kind of like it.
All right.
Okay.
Now, James, it's time for Jameis now.
Yeah. So basically, I was planning that Kevin does the decision for me whether I will take Matt Ryan or Dak Prescott. But now I have to choose between them. But I think I'll go with the oldie right here. I'm taking Matt Ryan, who might be underrated right now because he didn't have a good season last year. But yeah, I expect him to have like three or four more good years. So I'll go with Matt Ryan.
Chase Young was not a consideration for you.
The sarcasm is eventually going to come out. It's a criteria for anyone that works at PFF. The sarcasm has to be like almost unbearable. All right. By the way, the technical difficulty is slowly getting worked out. But Josh, you should have edit access now, and let me know if you don't. All right. So the first 6 picks: Mahomes, Jackson, Wilson, Watson, Murray, Matt Ryan. I'm up with the Panthers at 7. Now, Derek Brown's still on the board. I just don't
mild upset.
Yeah, I just don't think I can go that way. So I have 2 guys ahead of Matt Ryan. I have Carson Wentz and Dak Prescott both ahead of him based on age. I'm also considering Baker Mayfield here. This is really, really tough for me. I am going to go with – oh, man. So I think Carson Wentz and Dak Prescott are equally kind of yoked in terms of what I think they can be as an NFL player from a production standpoint. I'm a little more confident that Dak Prescott is the guy that I want to be the face of my franchise. So I'm going to go with Dak Prescott at 7 to the Panthers. But it's really tough for me.
All right, I'm gonna take a big swing here, and just on pure upside and hope, I'm gonna dive right back down into this year's 1.01, and I'm gonna give to the Cardinals Joe Burrow. I mean, obviously, you know, at least in the PFF era and the era which I've used statistics to study quarterbacks, there's been no one to even touch Joe Burrow's senior season. His last season. And I think that, you know, LSU obviously had a lot of playmakers. They had a lot of surrounding talent, and he was garbage for the rest of his career for the most part. But just on that hope, I think here when you're getting into the middle of the pack of quarterbacks that probably aren't going to take you to the promised land, that even a 15% shot at that type of outcome is worth the risk here at the 8th pick for the Cardinals.
Man.
I mean, look, he played
a lot,
really like the toughest schedule in college football last year, and he was the best player in college football. I mean, I don't know. I don't hate it at all.
If we've seen anything, it's that age matters.
Okay, if you think Kyler Murray was available, let's say in the same draft as Joe Burrow, who do you think would have gone number 1? Do you think Burrow still goes number 1?
I mean, because Murray had a couple strikes against him that Murray played in the Big 12 and he was short, or still is short. But like,
yeah, but Burrow had small hands, so he can't even.
That's true.
Football.
That's right.
Burrow's 32 years old, also. Let's not forget that.
Burrow's like Josh's point is really good. That like we have just never seen Baker and Kyler both seemingly dominated college football, and Burrow took it to the next level against much tougher competition. He was like significantly better than both those guys.
What about the possibility of Kyler Murray going back to baseball?
Yeah, but do you think that's so low, so much lower now? That,
we're gonna rehash that.
I mean, baseball's the economics of baseball can't be all that.
You have to think about all the the range of potential outcomes, right? So it's only 1% that he goes back to baseball, but that's 1% more than Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow, I mean,
if he goes back to baseball, then he's failed in the NFL anyway, right?
Yeah, and you drafted a failure in the top 5.
Yeah, but
his failure, whether he fails or not, is not dependent upon whether he goes to baseball. So whether he goes to baseball is dependent upon whether he fails.
There's almost no attractiveness to a baseball career once you've already signed a 1-1 deal in the NFL, though, right? I mean, baseball is in shambles.
I mean, if he wasn't a first-round pick, then I think
what do you guys think about like factoring those little small factors, you know, into, or like, you know, what is our idea of like leadership from a particular quarterback? Like, are you guys factoring that kind of stuff in?
So I got to be honest with you. I certainly did when it was a tie. So like to me, Wentz and Prescott, they obviously have their strengths there, but to me, it was basically a tie. And so I went in and I go, okay, what's going to break this tie? It's going to be the guy that I have more faith in as a person, and it happened to be Dak.
Which segues nicely into my pick here, which we're going to go with a little bit of intangibles here, where Rodgers a little bit pissed off at his coach, a little bit pissed off at his organization, a little bit pissed off at our friend at Ben Baldwin.
Angry Aaron theory. Angry Aaron.
Really? Angry Aaron is going to go, which seemed infeasible just like a few years ago. He's going to go 9th here to the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Wow.
So he's fifth on Timo and Kevin's article.
Round, right? I mean, if you want to keep Aaron angry, you're going to have to take Jordan Love with one of these next few rounds.
Okay.
Well, Gardner Minshew's presence, with the Jaguars is more than enough because, I mean, you're already coming to a situation
you're going to have to draft Gardner Minshew then.
Well, I'm going to take him in round – but you come into Jacksonville, you're replacing Minshew. You're already behind the 8 ball masculinity-wise. So you're going to have to, live up to, the countenance that is Gardner Minshew, and I think Rodgers will reach up and do that.
Eric? Do you know how old Aaron Rodgers is right now?
Yeah, he's not that young, but he's also not he's younger. I mean, he's what 36, 37.
He's 30. He's going to turn 37 during the season. Yeah.
Yeah. So he's younger than. I mean, as an alternative to Breeze and Brady, Roethlisberger, Rivers. I mean, he's still younger. And
true.
With you guys' article, I mean, we always, I think there's reasons probably why we like him more than maybe other people, but it's not like he's Drew Lock out there or, like Josh Allen, no offense, Evan, but he has been he hasn't been as good of late, but he's still good.
I thought you were setting up another segue for Evan's next pick there.
No, I'm just going to, at number 10 overall, I'm going to take Carson Wentz. Still can't believe that, the Browns passed on Carson Wentz back in the day. We got to rate that error. And we're going to take Carson Wentz here at number 10 overall when I think that he could have been justifiable as early as number 5 overall. The problem is the back issue. I don't really care about the knee. I don't really care about, some of the, the fractured wrist that he had. In college, he's had some shoulder problems, but in the pros. But the back, I think, is terrifying and justifiably pushes him down the board a little bit. But in 2017, he played at a legitimate MVP level. In 2019, he showed the ability to put a team that was really deficient in the pass catcher core on his back. He's when he's healthy, he's one of the more mobile quarterbacks in the league, and he's one of the most aggressive passers in the league. And I like his playing mentality, and hopefully he can stay healthy here in his ages 27 through 32 seasons.
See, I'm not worried about his fractured wrist so much as his fractured relationship with his receiving core. Who is he going to throw it to? They're just going to bat the ball down on the field and flip.
We're going to draft him a new receiver core here, and
Jalen Reagor hate is strong there. Wentz is interesting because the injury risk is real, and there are all these burblings of lack of leadership within an organization that I generally think of as having a really strong, owner, GM, and structure there. And so I'm not sure if that's Wentz. Is that Doug Peterson? I don't know. That was one of the things that I considered for sure.
All right, I'm just going to jump on here. This is another – I feel like this is also – I'm drafting at the beginning of the next tier down here a couple of times because I don't know who you take here with these guys. Is you're either going old again with one of these guys or you're going to go young. So I'm going to go back to younger. I'm going to go back to a little more upside. I'm going to go back to someone who had one of the best rookie seasons that we've seen in a long time. And then in a valley of dysfunction last season, did not perform well and is now seen as someone who maybe maybe playing for his job in a year or two.
my God.
And his ability to continue on as and get a second contract. But I still believe in him, so I'm going to go with Baker Mayfield here.
I thought you were going Mayfield like for the first 90% of your description, and then you said battling for his job, and I was like, is there someone I'm not aware of?
I mean, the Browns, though, they have an ejector seat after a guy starts for 2.5 years, so he's not wrong.
I don't think Case Keenum is that bad.
Name me a quarterback that started like 40 games for the Browns since they restarted. Tim Couch, Kelly Holcomb, like.
Was anyone like me and had Baker Mayfield ahead of Kyler Murray on their rankings?
No.
I had him higher, yeah.
Yeah, slightly.
Yeah, I had Baker a little higher than
I mean,
Kyler,
Murray,
but it's so close. It's almost like a distinction without a difference. So.
Yeah, Murray's rookie season was not as good as Mayfield's.
No, not even close.
But then Mayfield's second season was bad, although not as bad as people think.
Yeah, I don't know. I chalk a lot of that up to like the complete disaster that was going on there. Like I find it hard for a guy in his second year to overcome like diva wide receiver and head coach that literally has no idea what he's doing. To me, I'm giving him a complete pass there. I don't know. I had Mayfield ahead of Aaron Rodgers.
Hey, look, I follow Betts' Twitter account. I see what he posts on there. Baker did look lost, and there is some. I believe you guys are the ones that posted some of this data, but like from a clean pocket, he was kind of garbage last year,
yeah.
and so I mean, how much are we chalking it up to the system and their inability to install it properly and for him to comprehend it? I mean, this is one of the smarter quarterbacks we've had come out of college, and really, he's a guy who can just step into a system and kind of embody it. I don't know why it would have fallen off. The wheels would fall off so spectacularly when you have those kind of traits. He's got a good arm. So something going on in between the ears. And I don't know. Hopefully that gets fixed quickly because that's a thing that I thought he had in spades.
To me, like he just scrambled out of clean pockets so often.
Yes.
I mean, he would just jet, like he was sensing pressure wasn't there. And what causes that? Does he not trust his offensive line? A lot of people said that he did that a lot at Oklahoma, that he would scramble, especially to his right. Like he would just veer to his right, and
yeah,
I don't know. It turned into such a bad habit last year.
I mean, he did it a lot as a rookie too. He was just very successful throwing when he was getting out of the pocket. Not so much.
We've seen this at times with, during the end of, and granted, like this might not be the best thing for Mayfield, but we saw this at the end of the Rodgers era with McCarthy, where he like literally would hit his back foot and then just like drift because he didn't trust his first read, because he didn't trust the offense. I wonder how much having Stefanski come in and, add what appears to be a little bit of stability to the situation will do for him.
My thought there, and Ken Zampese came in, I think Eric, like we were hanging out with him, right? Was it last year? Mm-hmm. And we were watching some Mayfield stuff. We were grinding the tape. And he made this comment that was like, he will scramble, or move off the spot, but he's always doing it to throw. And to me, you can do that if you have confidence in your system and your receivers and all that. And it seemed like that just was out the door. Like there was he and Odell weren't on different pages. They were reading like different magazines, right? So I don't know, that was something that I feel like if it's taken away from you and you're so used to it being your like B move, you're in real trouble. But anyways, that was the Baker Mayfield portion.
Let's move on to the Jameis pick.
Yes.
So the next guy on my list would actually be Drew Brees, but
wow.
I already
sold you on the pyramid scheme.
Do they have pyramid schemes in Germany, Timo? Do they sell like wraps and stuff?
No, but I gotta spread the risk around, so I don't go with an old guy here. I can't go with a really young guy here because they're all gone. So I go right into the middle and I take the quarterback who was tied first in average depth of target last year. And it's not Jameis Winston, it's Matthew Stafford.
Yeah, good pick.
I really like that pick.
He had a tremendous first half of the season. Like he was one of the better quarterbacks. He was like putting it all together. He wasn't just dink and dunking like he had in the recent past, and he wasn't just slinging it indiscriminately like he was in his early parts of his career. It seemed like he was putting together the perfect Matt Stafford season. I hope he brings that back.
He was Jameis without the like what the fuck are you doing plays. Right? Like he was throwing it downfield and like wasn't making these just completely terrible decisions.
He's what people like me and Timo think Jameis is.
That's a solid pick. All right. I'm up. I've got the Colts. A lot of guys actually that I have still on my board. Drew Brees and Abdicare have not sucked me in yet. Yeah, they haven't gotten to me yet. The old guy, like if I were taking an old guy, I would take Tom Brady ahead of Drew Brees, and it wouldn't even be a question in my mind. I think Tom Brady could maybe play 3 more years, but that's still on the long end.
You're being sucked in by another pseudoscience in that regard.
No, I'm not. I'm not a proponent of the TB12 method. So I'm deciding between, as crazy as this may seem, Tua, Jimmy G, and Kirk Cousins. I'm not going to take Kirk Cousins over Jimmy G. And Tua, as much as I believe in him, I actually think that he's got, some question marks that I don't have with Jimmy G. So here it is. I hate to bring Jimmy to Indy because I know how much that will pain him, but I'm going to go with Jimmy Garoppolo.
It always had to be Jimmy. You were going to pick him.
You knew it.
I knew it.
You knew it.
And I'm glad you passed on Kirk Cousins because I think, especially coming into this year, there's a narrative surrounding him, and a lot of it is justified because of his surrounding talent or the deficit of it with the loss of Diggs and other things. Cook, I don't think is that big a hit, but some people are viewing it that way. But I think that you plop him in the right system, there's no reason he can't do the kind of things that Ryan Tannehill did last year. There's no reason. And the narrative about him not performing in big games kind of been blown up at this point. I think he's a solid QB at this spot. Will he take you deep into the playoffs is always the question. But, man, just get me to the playoffs when you're picking at this point. And I'm pretty happy. So I'm taking Kirk Cousins.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to run into a better leader in Jimmy G. And
I feel like he's going to run into the back of his left guard.
Kirk Cousins
during like a scramble.
So Mike Evans will go from 2,000 air yards to 400 air yards.
He still throws deep on play action, Timo.
He does.
It with the slander. Stop it with the slander.
Okay. I obviously have the Drew Lock pick here. I have Denver at 19.
How tempted are you?
Just a little bit. As it continues to go further down, I do start to be enticed a little bit by Breeze, Brady, Roethlisberger, Rivers. Obviously, Jameis is still on the board, which is enticing. I think I'm going to go – part of me really wants to take Ryan Tannehill here. And because when you look at his performance over the past, since he's been drafted, he's trending in the right direction. And then he had the injuries, and then he had last season, which was amazing. And a lot of stuff was in place there. But regression, it is what it is. So I'm gonna buy into the pyramid scheme at what number is this? 15. And I'm gonna go because I think he'll play at least a couple more years. I'm gonna go Drew Brees.
My God.
Okay. I'm gonna go with at pick number 16, picking for the Falcons. I'm going to go with Tua at age 22. I know that, there are concerns about his injury history. He played with 3, maybe even 4 future first-round picks in his wide receiver core. Those are concerns, but I think the dude's a baller. Watch him play, he just operates with a lot of decisiveness and urgency, maybe even too much urgency at times, but he was a prolific college passer and, a very good athlete. And I think that, this is where it starts to get a little bit difficult because we're running into some quarterbacks that we don't necessarily believe in. There is not a single snap of Tua Tagovailoa on NFL tape yet. So we're running into some some difficult decisions here, I think, as the second half of the first round begins. But I'm going to go with the upside here and give Tua to the Falcons.
Evan, you've taken Carson Wentz and Tua. Talk about you're going to need a medical staff between the Browns and Atlanta here that is second to none.
And Deshaun Watson.
That's true.
ACL tears on his resume.
2 of them, yeah.
I just as we're getting here to the second half, I love our top 4. Like to me, the fact that we took Pat Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Russell Wilson, and Deshaun Watson makes me excited for this football season. Like if that's somehow how this season breaks with those 4 guys having top, 5-ish seasons, we're in good shape.
All right, back to me here. I think Tannehill is in play, as Eric
so
mentioned. Yeah, Drew Lock's always in play. I think also here you can think about a younger quarterback if you like someone like Daniel Jones, although I feel like for me that's not going to take it. I'm going to take a guy that I think has been overshadowed by his draft class and the fact that they've gone back and forth and back and forth and back and forth over the years, and now everyone sees him as far below Carson Wentz and Dak Prescott. But I think Jared Goff is someone who has shown that he can play at that high level if you build around him in the right way, and that's something that a lot of guys can't do. And you also factor in little things. You want to factor in little things like the fact that he's a couple of years younger than someone like Carson Wentz. He's had as high of a ceiling as those guys almost did a couple of years ago with what he performed on the way before things got a little bit ugly going to the Super Bowl. So Goff's the guy for me because he's shown that he can do it when everything's around him, which is kind of an underrated skill. Most people just try to always look for upside. I look for a guy who's been able to prove it as long as you build the right team around him.
I think at this point in the draft, that's the way you have to view these guys. They're not. You're going to win with them, right? You're just going to win with them, and so build a good team around them, and you can make the playoffs. You can win in maybe a lucky game in the playoffs against Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens.
Timo, you can do it.
So I'm drafting for the Steelers. I take the risk and let Eric on the clock one more time. I go full win now mode, and I'm taking Tom Brady. So,
damn it. Yeah. Man, I really was excited to bring Tom Brady to Chicago after what they have suffered through, and will continue to suffer through this year with that experiment. And so now, the older guys that are left, Ben Roethlisberger, for example, is an older guy that's still on the board. Phillip Rivers, an older guy that's still on the board. Younger guys that are here, there is Jameis, there's Dwayne Haskins, there's I guess you put Derek Carr and Teddy Bridgewater sort of in that group. I think Cam Newton is an interesting option here. And then also Sam Darnold, who's I think had like one of the worst situations known to man and is being underrated here. So this is tough. I am going to go with Jameis Winston.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm gonna go.
Sometimes
Jameis.
I wonder if I'm having an effect on George, all
this
these
is it.
years, and then all of a sudden, boom.
That's
So,
the best quarterback the Bears had in their franchise history ever.
Here's the thing.
Story Bucks franchise. Best
I
quarterback
was swayed
of all
a
time.
little bit by what Josh just said because he reminded me of something that Eric often preaches, which is when you make it to the playoffs, you win a Super Bowl because you can string together 3-4 great games. And Jameis Winston may not get me to the playoffs in 4 of the 5 years because he's a catastrophe. But if he gets me there one year, I at least think he's got a chance to string them together, whereas I don't feel that way about Teddy Bridgewater or Ryan Tannehill. So, Jameis it is.
This is a tough one for me, but I do think I'm gonna join the Drew Brees redemption parade and slot him in for one more year on the Rams here.
Drew
more of
Brees
a
has
win
already
now.
has already been taken, dude.
I've already
Oh
took.
my God,
I already
you're right.
took
You
the
went to the-
flag for.
You went the okay. So then this makes
Sorry,
it
I
much
said
easier.
Drew Lock, but I didn't actually ever want
I
to take
see.
him.
I see. Okay. So this makes it much easier, and this is actually a much more woke pick. I'm going to take Cam Newton, a guy who's sitting on the sidelines
Smart.
without a team right now.
Wow,
I think he
that's
deserves to be on a roster right now. I think there's tons of ways you can utilize his talents to win, and I like him better than Tannehill. I like him certainly better than Carr, and way better than Jones and Allen. So that would be my pick at this point.
That's a
Yeah, that's a good
good
place.
move,
I
I think.
I like that pick a lot.
and you've put me in, Josh, a position where I get the best of both worlds. I get Tannehill on the conservative end, and then I get Ryan Fitzpatrick on the just YOLO. Just you only live once type of situation. I'm going to go with Tannehill for the reasons I said a couple picks ago. I think he was on a career arc that was, pretty good. And then last season, he sort of, made good on some of the promises he had made early in his career with Miami before the ACL. So give me Tannehill here.
Wow. What did he go
Okay.
in that ESPN one?
25th.
Okay.
He went before Cousins and Goff, I think, but
Mhm.
I don't know. At 25, I felt like that was a good pick.
Yeah.
21
All right.
here. Probably.
This is the pick that I have been – so I cheated a little bit. I set the draft order, and I started at this pick and worked my way backwards, and that's why Evan Silva has the Bills.
I also noticed that you gave me like the Giants, who I spent like all of 2019 ripping on, and then the Falcons, who I just like destroyed their draft. So I didn't know if you were like, but man, this is really, really tough. I mean, I think there's a temptation to give him Ben and try to just go for it for 1 or 2 years. Ben's only 38. I know it feels like he's 43, but he's only 38. I don't know if that arm is going to hold together, though. I'm like legit worried about that. He had 3 tendons reattached in his throwing elbow. That's terrifying. And then it's Sam Darnold, Josh Allen, or Daniel Jones. And I think that they're all in very similar territory. I wake up one day, I like Darnold the best. I wake up the next day, I like Daniel Jones the best. But, I kind of think I know who the best, and that's going to be the 2020 NFL MVP, Josh Allen, reuniting with the Buffalo Bills, the beloved Bills Mafia, and they deserve Josh Allen, and that's who they're going to get.
Yes, they do.
No, but I also
All right, I could get behind that last part. You deserve
well,
it.
I mean, he's maybe the best running quarterback in the NFL outside of Lamar.
Mhm.
So, and we understand that he has these, he's a broke deep ball passer right now. He doesn't know where the ball is going more often than not, I would say. When, he doesn't have control over the football more often than not when he's throwing the ball downfield. But how much how much value does that rushing ability bring? Because I think that, 10 touchdown rushing, 30 touchdown passing year is sort of in his range of potential outcomes. He did get better going from year 1 to year 2. And just, I remember coming out of college, like I didn't think of him as a dynamic dual threat. I thought of him as a guy who was clearly an inaccurate passer, a guy that Wyoming didn't even build their offense around. They built the offense around Brian Hill, primarily the running back. And, he gets to the pros and they start to put pieces around him. And I mean, he took a step forward. That's indisputable entering going into his second year. And now they give him Stephon Diggs, the best deep ball receiver statistically in 2019, to kind of, understanding that, hey, that's a weakness for Josh Allen. We're going to give him a means of improving upon that weakness. Now, he doesn't necessarily get Stephon Diggs in this draft. If we get to round 2, maybe I'll take him. But for the Bills, but I don't know. I mean, I think I think the team is going to be good. I think he has a chance to throw 30 touchdown passes and run for 10. And if this team is 12-4 and they've got a super, an ultra productive quarterback, like I don't know how he wouldn't be in the MVP conversation.
Josh Allen doesn't need Diggs. He needs a big body deep target. He needs a Megatron to make his deep passes.
Calvin Benjamin. Get him back to
He needs a
Buffalo.
burner.
That was the Dave Gettleman thinking. You remember he surrounded Cam Newton with Devin Funchess and Kelvin Benjamin and and Greg Olson, and they put a bunch of big guys around him to like give him big catching radius, but then they just got to be the slowest team in the end.
Well, and Cam Newton's MVP season came in the year when Benjamin had an ACL and Ted Ginn was his best receiver, right?
And all they needed was Ted Ginn. Ted Ginn caught 10 touchdowns that season.
Josh Allen is not Cam Newton. What do we do?
Dropped another 12.
I think that the Bills organization sees him as 90% of Cam Newton.
Here's the question.
Lord.
Here's the question I have. You said he's the second best running quarterback behind Lamar Jackson. I almost the tequila I just drank almost came right back out because I look at guys that are clearly, in my opinion, better runners with the football, but because they can actually throw the football at a decent, clip, they don't need to be utilized like that. So I wonder, is the reason that he is, in your mind, number 2 in terms of rushing because he has to do that or else he won't be in the league?
No, I'm not trying to create an argument there. I mean, I think that there's a bunch of guys that are good scrambling quarterbacks. He has, he scored more rushing touchdowns than any quarterback in the NFL over the past 2 years. He's been super productive in terms of overall volume from a rushing standpoint. He got better as a passer going from year 1 to year 2. And now going into year 3, adding another dynamic weapon, the guy who, averaged the second most yards per route run and had the best deep ball efficiency among all wide receivers last year. They added him to,
But he's not on your team. He's not on your team, though.
I know. I understand that. I diverted and started talking about the MVP conversation. Listen,
gotcha.
Forward with this draft. I'm assigning Josh Allen back to the Bills, and Bills Mafia is ecstatic, and they're jumping through hella tables.
Allen, very interesting in that the majority of his rushing yards were on scrambles, but the majority of his touchdowns were on design runs inside the 10. So he is a very good runner. I will give him that. The tricky part is unlike Lamar, Lamar gets 3/4 of his yards on design runs. Like, I don't know if Buffalo's going to want to do that, but it'll be interesting to see.
That works perfectly, by the way. The Pats and Kevin Cole are up.
All right. Jarrett Stidham, of course, is in contention here, but I'm going to go with one of the guys that Evan mentioned. I think when you're looking at quarterback play, there's been quite a few different studies on this that have shown that guys who can give you kind of some high upside play, even if they have mistakes, that's the thing that's more difficult to gain to become elite is when you someone who can really make plays and throw the balls down the field. And even if you have the negatives to go along with that, it's easier for even an average or a mediocre quarterback to avoid mistakes than it is to make plays. So I'm going to look for a young guy who's made some plays, but has a lot of mistakes, some awareness problems in the pocket, which maybe can be cleaned up. And that's Daniel Jones.
Wow.
Yeah. So I would have taken him before Allen. I think he's just shown more. I think he was probably a little underrated coming out of college by a lot of the community. Maybe didn't deserve to be the 6th pick overall, but he truly played with an awful supporting cast there. I know that that was kind of Allen's card for why he did poorly in college, but he also played against really bad competition in college as opposed to what Jones did. So so he's my guy, and it seems to be a familiar theme for me. Is I'm going a little bit more upside with younger guys.
I see Frisco over here, smirking. And, I mean, he took a dude who's literally out of the league, okay? And at least we took young guys who are in the NFL, okay? Just so you know.
I don't understand. This is a different draft. These are not on their teams. Doesn't matter if they're in the league or not. I'm putting them on my team, and we're rolling him out there, and we're going to take advantage of his unique abilities.
It's similar to how Frisco doesn't exist anywhere, even in the minds of people who live in San Francisco. So it fits. Oh, man.
Wah, wah, wah. All right.
Timo. The Saints.
Yeah, the Saints. All right. Yeah, I was pretty sure that I would take a non-quarterback at 24. But
guard.
But the last two picks, two guys went off the board that weren't even on my list. Because I mean, I feel like before I take a bet on Josh Allen becoming good, I can just draft quarterbacks the next draft. No, he will become good. So I will go with another oldie, and this is Philip Rivers. So the Saints have a good O-line, and I think Philip Rivers can have like at least 2 more years. And yeah,
They only have a good O-line if you draft one. So
yeah, I mean, I have guards. I have guards on my list.
may God help you.
The Saints at least have a home field advantage, which is unlike what the Chargers have had to deal with for 2-3 years.
I'm kind of surprised. I'm surprised Rivers went ahead of Roethlisberger. Like, to me, Rivers is closer to being done than Big Ben is. Which is why at 25 with the Vikings, I'm tempted here. I am considering Sam Darnold, who I would have taken ahead of Daniel Jones. I'm considering Dwayne Haskins. I'm considering Ben Roethlisberger. I'm sort of considering Teddy Bridgewater just because I know Eric is going to take him at 27. And this is tough because, a 5-year window, I think Ben could last like 2 to 3 years, but that's half or less than half of, the time that I've got here. So I'm going to take Sam Darnold, who I think has just had one of the worst situations in football, including this mono thing. And as long as he doesn't get coronavirus, I feel good about his chances to be decent with a decent supporting cast.
George, can you give a little bit more on Darnold versus Daniel Jones? Because I think I think
Okay.
you have a contrarian idea there. I mean, I kind of get where you're coming from, but you have two years of bad performance versus 1 year of, okay performance for a rookie at least.
Okay, so I think Daniel Jones' rookie performance was dramatically overrated based on his touchdown interception ratio stuff, which in the year of our Lord 2020,
which was all concentrated in like 3 games too.
I think needs to be ruled out. So I'm going to grab the PFF grades here. Sam Darnold has not been good, about a 65 overall PFF grade, both of his first 2 seasons. And I want to say Daniel Jones was right in that area as well. The difference being that I just think Sam Darnold's situation has been so poor that I'm going to go back to what I valued both those guys at pre-draft. And Sam Darnold was well ahead of Daniel Jones in that situation. So so that's why I would go Darnold ahead of Daniel Jones there. I'm going to use that prior a little bit more. Now, that prior could be totally wrong because Sam Darnold didn't exactly have – maybe I'm using that California, rose-colored glasses there with what he did in the year before his last year at USC. But I'm going to leverage that a little bit more than I think most people would.
Yeah, I mean, he hasn't really been good since his redshirt freshman season.
Yeah,
so it's been a while.
Look, we're in the dog days here. I strongly considered being the first person to pivot from quarterback, but I couldn't wear that. I couldn't be that guy. So,
right.
Look, you're taking shots here. I at least am going to take a shot that I could get a guy that could be good enough to win me a Super Bowl.
So you guys asked about if there are leadership issues or anything like that that would cause you to be on or off a guy. And that's the case for me with Roethlisberger. It's a threshold thing. I would never have him on one of my teams, no matter how good he is. It's just right off the table. So he's off, even though he's probably the pick here in terms of pure talent and the breadth of his resume. So I'm kind of left here with unpalatable choices between youngsters, Dwayne Haskins and Drew Lock. And I think this is an interesting choice, right? Like right now you have about a half a season for each of them. And then you have your prior coming in pre-draft. And based on both of those franchises and based on the power of my prior coming in from colleges, I have to give the edge to Dwayne Haskins. And he actually came on at the end of the season a little bit better than he did. He showed some promise. he made some strides, but it was god awful. But your first half year as a starter on a bad team needs to be heavily discounted. The same way for, it's the exact same thing with Drew Lock, who performed a little bit better, but he also had, I think, a much better defense to protect him, and he also had some pretty decent tools and weapons to work with. I think Drew Lock is going to fall on his face this year, and I wouldn't even take him in the first round, I don't believe. I think I would start drafting cornerbacks and edge rushers before I took Drew Lock. But, so dial in Dwayne Haskins for me for the Texans at pick 26.
Is that even a hot take about Drew Lock? I think that Drew Lock, in all likelihood, is going to be a backup in the NFL. So,
I think it's a hot take for a lot of people in Denver. Absolutely.
It seems like it is for a lot of people in Denver, and for the person covering Denver for ESPN, and I don't know. I mean, people are really clinging to that scary 5-game sample against a bunch of terrible teams. I don't know, with the exception of that blowout win against the Texans, but that was just kind of a wild game at the end. I mean, I don't know, man.
And how good was that 5-game sample? Like, I get the touchdown to interception ratio.
He averaged 6.5 yards per attempt.
Let's be realistic here. That means nothing in such a small sample,
but
much
also
less in a big sample.
But I do think that there's a chance that with him on the rookie deal and with all the players they put around him, Dalton Reisner, Fant, Alberto, Judy, Sutton, they could be a pop-up team in an AFC that's not like terribly good. I think the discussion next year around this time is going to be the same one we've been having about the Bortleses and the Trubiskys and the Drew, Josh Allen's. Like, I think Denver could be good this year, but we're going to be arguing at this time next year. It's not because of Drew Lock.
I mean, the thing for me is, if you asked the supporters of Drew Lock, how much higher could he be rated if he was a legitimate top 15 pick in the NFL draft instead of the 42nd pick in the NFL draft? And I'm not sure people would really view him any differently. So, yeah, I think that whole thing is just being discounted. The fact that, multiple quarterback needy teams passed on him some multiple times. So I think that's the thing that's really,
including Denver twice.
To. Right. So that's just the thing people aren't paying attention to, which I think is important. So, yeah.
And it's wild that they haven't upgraded their number 2 quarterback position over Jeff Driscoll. Yeah. So if Drew Lock fails, they just go straight to Driscoll.
We have seen some success with Pat Shurmur with Minnesota with Keenum, and also the Giants' offense wasn't nearly as bad the last 2 years as their record would suggest. So there might be some situation where they can gel, but I don't know. Like you said, they have no backup plan, which is crazy to me, especially given the players who are available, namely the guy Josh drafted.
Eric, the Seahawks are at 27, and Rashad Penny is still on the board.
And who's on the board?
Rashad Penny.
Oh, yeah. Well, this is the infamous Rashad Penny pick, right? I'm actually I've been sort of going back and forth here. I think the marginal value of taking the next quarterback here is pretty minimal. But at the same time, you have to ask the question, is the next wide receiver, is the difference between any of these next wide receivers that minimal, is that big as well? But I do think there's a guy who, going into his 4th season, is ascending, can play both the inside and the outside, has made do with, sorry, Timo, but a quarterback who hasn't been the greatest in the world. And I only see him going up from here. So with the first non-quarterback pick, I'm actually going to take Chris Godwin, the wide receiver.
Wow.
I stand. That's it. That's a good choice.
Wow.
Yeah.
Crazy.
I'm curious, how many of you taking the first non-quarterback would have been within like a 10-mile radius of Chris Godwin?
5-mile radius, maybe.
Very valuable player. Very good. Also ascending.
I mean, how much does Jameis add to the value of a wide receiver, though? Like, honestly, I think it's an interesting discussion. I mean, we'll see with Tom Brady this year, but there is something to Jameis. I mean, I was going through a bunch of stats the other day about, throwing past the sticks, doing other stuff. I mean, this guy's just willing to throw it all over the place. And when we look at a lot of the receiver efficiency stats and things like that, we're taking out all of those negatives, right? We're taking out the interceptions the quarterback throws. We're taking out the sacks. Like those parts of the passing game aren't really built into a lot of these efficiency stats that we look at for receivers. We're looking at how well they perform when the ball is catchable, essentially. Yeah. So Jameis is giving those guys a lot of opportunities for catchable balls for a lot of value, and then all the negative stuff it just gets attributed to him, basically.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, and there is another wide receiver here who I do think offers a ton of value in a different way, but he has off the field issues that I think make him too risky. When I look at
Tyreek Hill's name.
Yeah. I was thinking about Tyreek Hill, but there is, as Evan pointed out, there's a probability of complete bust that is something I can't, sit with here. Godwin, I don't think has that. And as far as adding value, I do agree with you, Kevin. There is something to the sort of opportunities that he gets. But when you look at a guy who predominantly played, who played inside outside, averaging 11 yards per target last year and over 9 yards a target, basically every single season of his career, like there's just a lot going for him. And when I'm trying to build a team and I'm looking at like picking between Roethlisberger, Carr, Fitzpatrick, Tyrod Taylor, like I'm just going to be like, okay, I'm going to make somebody else make that decision for me and take a wide receiver who I know is going to be productive with this first pick.
Man, fascinating. I am very interested by Kevin's point, which is like, if you just give a guy this many opportunities downfield, are we inflating,
but is it though? He only had a 121 target. I mean, we're not talking about a guy who's like, we're not talking about DeAndre Hopkins here, who's awesome, right? Don't get me wrong, but we're like, it's not like he's at the Allen Iverson of wide receivers, right? He was given a lot of good opportunities, but he had relatively few relative to other like really good receivers. Plus, he had to compete with targets with Mike Evans. Yeah, and he made a guy like OJ Howard, who's a first round pick, basically disposable in the middle of the field because he outplayed. There's a ton of things that I think are positive in Godwin's direction.
No, look, I'm with you that I think he would be higher on my board than most people's. I guess what I am curious about is like, we have seen Bruce Arians' offense elevate players that have just become kind of nothingness or average, to a level where everyone was kind of going, oh my God, like how did I miss out on John Brown? John Brown is a nickname, halfway into the 2015 season and, a year and a half later, like he can't be found. So I don't know, that part of me worries me a little bit. I'm not saying that Chris Godwin is John Brown, by the way, but like that would be the part that would scare me off from a guy like DeAndre Hopkins or Julio Jones. But I think it's a fascinating conversation.
It is. So I'm going to follow up Eric's possession slot receiver, first round pick with a future Hall of Fame quarterback in Ben Roethlisberger. And, not the greatest guy, but, he has won the big one before. The last time we saw him play a full season he was very good in 2018. Definitely worry about his health, but I think that the health situation, it's sort of baked into his price at this point because he's going toward the end of the first round. You don't even need to hire an offensive coordinator. He saves your organization money because he will run the offense. Actually, he's going to run the offense. So don't hire an offensive coordinator because it might piss him off. So I like that about him. I like his aggressiveness. Again, he's
on and off the field.
He's got 2 or 3 good years left in. But we're going to take the shot on Big Ben.
I'm like 0 for 5 on jokes so far, but it's okay.
I think we were just staying away from that one. That one at bright lights said stay away. And on that note, so I would have taken Roethlisberger because I feel like if Evan didn't choose him, because he's a guy where you pick him, you're in contention, right? You're in contention to potentially win the Super Bowl. Unless my accounting is off on the quarterbacks who are available still, I don't think there's anyone else still available at this point, young or old, who puts you into that category. So, I mean, I'm going to pivot pretty far away from where people may be thinking because while I agree with the wide receiver value equation, I just think there's a little bit more depth at the top than there are at some other positions, some valuable positions. And I'm going to go with a guy that we haven't been that high on for a couple of years. But if you look at the NFL and the trade value that he gets, they're very high on him. And I'm going to go with Jalen Ramsey here.
It's not
I just feel like it's been an undervalued trade that we've seen for a while. But if you have a true lockdown #1 cornerback that really provides a lot of value potentially for the defense, and he's a guy who's young, and you just don't, there just aren't many guys out there like him. So he's unique. So I feel like a unique player here, and then you can come back in the rounds going forward, especially at the turn here, to add to the offense to start to build that up. But let's grab the most unique player now.
I like that. I like Ramsey a lot. The Rams clearly did too.
Yeah, I mean, he went for. I mean, how many guys get that sort of trade value, right? So
Jordan Love still on the board for the Packers at 30, Timo. You got to be tempted.
Yeah,
You got to be a little tempted.
But what about AJ Dillon? You just need to set up the play action pass.
You have to.
No, but I mean, I'm pretty confident. Like Eric said before, I'm pretty confident I still get a stud receiver at 35 if I want to. So I also go defense here, but I'm going with the safety position. I'm taking Derwin James. I'm still pissed the Bucs didn't draft him back in 2018. So yeah, I'll draft him right now for the Packers.
This is soul crushing because I had a chance at semi-redemption. I almost lost it when the Niners didn't take Derwin James in real life, and I was finally set up to redeem it. It was going to be how I slept tonight, and you've stripped him away from me again. So now I'm a ship without a sail at this point.
What do we think Derwin James commands on the free market? Like in comparison to someone like Jalen Ramsey, not that, or let's say Ramsey was overpriced, but like the safety position, is it just a mistake from the NFL that it's not that coveted? Is he just placed into a box that he doesn't belong in?
That's a great question, because right now the highest paid is 14.6 with Eddie Jackson.
Yeah,
and then you look at.
So you should get even more value from having him on your team too, right? Because you can hold down his contract.
Well, you don't need to have as many higher price. It's sort of the Tyrann Mathieu thing in Kansas City, where you can pay your corners like $3 million collectively because he covers up a lot. So there's value even in that too, right?
Yeah, no, that's a good point. All right, so I'm stuck here now without the guy that I was going to take, but I'm prepared for it. The quarterbacks that are left, honestly, the one that I am most intrigued by is Gardner Minshew. That being said, I'm not going to take Gardner Minshew right here because I just don't see the benefit above what will probably be left for me after the turn. So I'm going to take my choices at wide receiver, and I'm going to go with DeAndre Hopkins, who I believe is the best all-around person / wide receiver at the wide receiver position. I could have been convinced, to look at Odell Beckham Jr. a little bit harder. I think Michael Thomas is really good, but not quite as diverse. I think Julio is a little older there, and Tyreek Hill is obviously a huge question mark. So DeAndre Hopkins, to me, will give whatever quarterback I end up with in this draft the best chance. I mean, look, he was a great wide receiver with Brock Osweiler at QB. So I'm confident I get someone better than Brock at some point in San Francisco.
All right, I'm going to be flipping PFF the bird here, so I think this deserves like a full-throated explanation. So I'll start with why I won't go wide receiver. I can't go wide receiver because just my philosophy is you need a quarterback for the passing game to work. It's just that's where you have to begin. So spending a bunch of draft capital on a wide receiver before you get that quarterback, putting the cart before the horse. I love the idea of beefing up a secondary, but I'm at the turn here, and even 2 stud cornerbacks is still leaving me at least 1 and probably 2 links short of having a dominant secondary.
Oh, that's a good point.
What I can do on this turn is make a devastating front line.
Oh my God.
An incredible D-line. And so what do? You take the best current defensive lineman in all the NFL in Aaron Donald. And then on the way back, you take one of the best prospects that we've seen on the edge, and whoever knows how long, in youngster Chase Young.
This is when the draft starts to become exciting.
Yes.
We're not just taking some old fogey quarterback or Ryan Tannehill. Like, now you got to be a little creative, and Herm Smart got creative there.
That was I was wondering how high Chase Young was going to go, because I was creating my rankings for the D line, and I was like, man, are there really that many guys that I'm that excited about over Chase Young? Not really. I mean, he's super young. The guy's an absolute freak.
Other than Burrow or Tua, I think Chase Young is the only rookie I listed on my short list of draftable players.
So, the Niners are back on the clock. We have DeAndre Hopkins already. The quarterbacks are not great, as Josh talked about. Now, I believe also that quarterback is a necessary component here for the passing game. And when my quarterback comes to San Francisco, my guy is going to have one hell of a wide receiving core to throw to. I could play quarterback for this team and take them to the playoffs, because I am going to take Tyreek Hill and pair him with DeAndre Hopkins. And now even Drew Lock could succeed in this situation. I'm just going to go all in into, look, I'm going to take a high upside quarterback at some point. They may fall flat on their face. And if so, then I'm going to get a guy in the top of the draft next year, and he's going to have a couple of great receivers to throw to. Timo?
So I'm on the clock.
Yep.
I'm tempted to add another cornerback here. So really
Derwin
bump up
James
the
and
secondary a little
and
bit
another corner.
for the Packers. Or I go with the receiver. I mean, I don't know. The Packers, they don't draft receivers. We know that.
At least not, yeah.
Yeah, but it's the second round, so they draft receivers in the second round. So I'm gonna go with Casey Hayward. Next in the secondary.
2 Charger players going ahead of Justin Herbert. None of them being on offense.
Which probably tells you why they're going to win 6 games.
Yeah, that tells you a lot.
Hayward's been the third most valuable player on in the secondary the last 3 years in the NFL.
Yeah, and we pivoted hard from quarterbacks here. All right, Kevin, you're up. You can make it another double-double on the defensive backfield.
Yeah, I was thinking about it. The question is, do I want to go with someone like Stephon Gilmore? I mean, he's not old, but he's approaching 30 for a cornerback, where I'd be a little bit more concerned about that. So I'm not going to worry about doubling up too much there. Again, when I look at the receivers, I guess maybe there's no one who's jumping out to me all the way. I mean, maybe someone like Julio Jones, but maybe I'm being too concerned about age again. So I'm going to go with George Kittle here, and get again just a unique talent, where we have Kelsey, we have Kittle, and I'm going to take a little bit of the younger guy there, who can do a little bit more, even inline or outside. So Kittle's going to be the pick for me. I just feel like he's a player, again, like when it comes to someone like Jalen Ramsey, just unique talents that you can then build around.
I like this Titans
I had
team
George
more.
Kittle as one of my top 5 non-quarterback picks.
First name, right?
George Kittle.
Yeah, it's just a great first name.
Oh yeah, his name is George.
Probably the
He's
best.
just, everything about
him.
him. Everything about him is great. Like his whole personality, he's great for the league. He's just loves the game. He reminds me of Brett Favre that way. You can just tell he just loves playing the game, and he's good natured about it. He's not unlike Brett Favre. He's not a complete jerk. So yeah, just great pick and a great guy.
I have a hot take that I like his personality more than Gronk's.
Yeah, for sure.
Man, I feel like tight end is also a
George has
position.
always talked disparagingly about the Midwest, but now it fully comes out that he's like a huge fan of Midwestern people. So,
of course.
I mean, I feel like tight end is also a position that's extremely undervalued in the market. I mean, Hooper has the number one contract at a little bit over $10 million. Kelsey's barely making anything. It's tough to draft one early because you don't know if you're going to get a good one. But if you know you have a good one, I mean, you could be paying George Kittle less than $15 million a year when he signs a new contract versus Amari Cooper or someone like that is getting $20 million plus at the wide receiver position. So I feel like there's just a lot of value you can get from the position just as far as contracts are concerned going forward too.
Evan?
Yeah, man, I got a lot of good dudes on my radar here, but
Ravens could have
man.
Ben and Antonio Brown. I'm just letting you know that.
No, Antonio Brown's not in the league. You can't draft him, right?
Yeah, you can.
I'd let you draft him.
No,
I drafted Cam. Come on, let's go.
That's true. You broke the rules, though, Josh. With Big Ben, when you have like an old quarterback, you need to maximize his protection. So I'm really tempted to take an offensive lineman, and there's a lot of good options. But I also think that there's going to be a lot of good options for offensive linemen in the third round. And so I'm going to give Big Ben A.J. Brown right here. And A.J. Brown is going to be the best receiver in the league from ages 23 through 27. Now, Ben may only be around for those first couple years, but A.J. Brown is just an absolutely insane talent. I mean, I watched a lot of him at Ole Miss, and I think that Jordan Ta'amu and the offense there they couldn't bring it out of him. But, man, the Titans really did, throwing off play action, getting him in space a good amount. He's incredible after the catch. He can win downfield. He's huge. I mean, he reminded me of Terrell Owens his rookie season. And we're going to pair him with Big Ben, and we're going to try to win a Super Bowl in 2020 with the Ravens.
I like that.
Nice. Okay. With this, so now notice, like, when I took Godwin as the first non-QB, everybody ahead of me in the snake draft has to draft a non-QB moving forward. So it makes zero sense for me to take Derek Carr here, but I will take him at 91. What I'm going to do here, to Kevin's point, talking about tight end scarcity, I'm going to take the second best tight end in the NFL, and the distance between him and Kittle is very small compared to the distance between him and the third best tight end in the NFL. So I'm going to go Travis Kelce here at 38.
Ooh, interesting. Do you think Chris Godwin would still have been available here at 38 had you not taken him?
Yeah, I am kind of looking like a stooge here. But if I with my Seattle team having Derek Carr at 91, Kelce and Godwin, think about the dump offs and the run after the catch I'm going to get with this team.
Yeah, but you're going to take an interior lineman and a guard, and a quarterback, so it's going to be great. All right, Josh.
So Dwayne Haskins needs someone to throw to. There's a guy out there, he's young, who has incredible deep ball ability. I think his ADOT's like 15. And he also can run routes at all levels of the field. That's Kenny Golladay. He's young. He's just a talented receiver, and I think he will mesh well with Haskins' skill set if he has time to drop back and read the field. That's a big if. But we are going to give Haskins at least one solid weapon to give him a fighting chance to field at least a manageable, serviceable team this year.
That's a great pick.
I almost thought you were going Terry McLaurin there.
So did I.
Shower narrative? No, I'm not going to do that.
All right, so the Vikings now at pick 40. We took Sam Darnold. A couple picks after Daniel Jones, but we were really happy that he fell to us. And, I was considering Terry McLaurin. Look, Michael Thomas and Julio Jones are still on the board. And, if Sam Darnold is going to reach his potential, he's going to have guys that are getting open. That being said, I am not sure that there is a player better at getting open than Odell Beckham Jr. And I'm the GM of this team, and I have a lot of confidence in my ability to manage great players with unique personalities. He will not be wearing a ridiculous watch on the field because we'll talk about it beforehand. And look, if Eli Manning can throw the ball to him and he can be an all-pro wide receiver, Sam Darnold certainly can. This is by far the best receiver Sam Darnold will ever throw to. And to be perfectly honest, I can't believe that some of the receivers taken before OBJ were taken. And I'm guessing that's because of his personality. But look, Freddie Kitchens couldn't manage anybody. So I'm confident in my ability.
You're the one guy who can change Odell, George. I agree.
I don't need to change him. He was fucking amazing.
Yes, he was.
Oh, stop it. Stop it.
Living off the catch, still living off the catch, bro.
I am. That was.
Damn. Calling him
It was
washed.
a great catch 5 years ago.
Oh, my God. Incredible. I'm getting you a Freddie Kitchens fat head for your blank wall behind you.
Freddie Kitchens did nothing wrong might be the tweets next year when the Browns start 2-11.
Wow.
All right, Timo. Phillip Rivers needs someone young.
That's true. So it's the fourth quarter. Phil Rivers is down by 6, and he needs someone who can get open down the field, and he needs someone who's just 26 years old but has been in the league forever. So it's obviously Mike Evans at this spot.
Not surprised by that. You had to take your Bucks contingent here at some point.
I mean, I thought
Rivers
Michael
absolutely
Thomas,
loved that kind of receiver, though. That the just throw it up and let the guy catch it and fall on his ass. Like, that's a great Rivers receiver.
I mean,
Yeah,
he likes
that's what I'm thinking.
He likes Keenan Allen though too, right? I don't know. I feel like Michael Thomas might have been an interesting pairing with him also. But anyway.
Oh, PFF put up a graphic of our draft, and of course, it's the worst draft ever. You guys know.
Yeah, I'm seeing.
Okay.
There's a person with the name Broncos Summer 2020. You can imagine his take.
All right, I'm gonna even though I'm not sure about the pairing or not with Daniel Jones, I'm just gonna go ahead and put in the card here for Michael Thomas just to give him someone who is kind of always open in some sort of way over the middle of the field. Like I said, the thing with Daniel Jones is one of his problems last year wasn't accuracy, wasn't his ability to keep his eyes downfield and throw. It was really his ability to feel when pressure was coming, and he had a ton of fumbles. So I feel like if he can get the ball out of his hands a lot quicker, and that'll help with someone like Michael Thomas, you can kind of mix those plays in with the bigger plays. So although I liked a lot of the wide receivers that were selected, Thomas falling this far is pretty big disconnect with what we're thinking and what the NFL is thinking.
Yeah, this is saying how much we think Drew Brees and Sean Payton are a part of Michael Thomas, right?
Yeah, absolutely the case. And it's not to say that Michael Thomas isn't great, but it is to say what he does doesn't seem to be particularly special. He does what he does really, really well, but the thing itself that he's doing, the routes that he's running, they're precise, but they aren't. He's not a Tyreek Hill type talent, a guy I would never roster on my team for other moral and ethical reasons, but he's not that kind of game-changing wide receiver.
I mean, the thing is, he put up such big numbers
right now.
What's that?
No, I was gonna say he put up such big numbers though. Like you could even discount what he's done pretty healthily, and he still is, one of the top receivers out there. So anyway, I don't know. I feel like the Michael Thomas hate has gone a little too far.
He's great.
But if you can get him this late, then that's fine.
Yeah, I mean, the question is whether he's 30 catches and X amount of yards better than everybody else, which I think most people would say no, that excess is due to Brees, but he's still really good.
He's really good, and it was a great pick. I'm going to pair Josh Allen with Tre'Davious White, and we're just going to go all in on Bills Mafia. I want to hear the PF. Look at the PFF guys laughing. You know, I was looking at Tre'Davious White's ranking in the PFF grades, and I need a long explanation for this. Eric, you're apparently the storyteller of the website, so have at it.
Zone. I mean, Josh, you guys posted that article, was it during the season, about the predictability and the reliability of zone coverage versus man coverage? And
yeah, we're completely unable to. Yeah, go ahead.
And we're finding, you know, our group's kind of finding similar things where, you know, zone is just trickier. That being said, he's a good player. I mean, you know, when you look at defensive backs the last 3 years, he's one of the top 20 most valuable. You know, he's not
25
terrible.
Years old. He's one of the best cornerbacks in the league. I understand he's played in a predominantly man system. He's also, or predominantly zone system. He's also had experiences with chasing around number one receivers at times. He doesn't do it as much as maybe, you know, some other cornerbacks. But I mean, I don't know. I mean, are you guys having like because I know you guys weren't that high on him prior to the draft. His combine athleticism, if I recall correctly, wasn't that great. I mean, can stuff like that ever, you know, create priors that affect your, or is it just all off the game charters, and so therefore it's you know really shouldn't be that biased?
Well, his combines has nothing to do with what ends up being his PFF grade on the field. Okay. You know, I do think it's just a product of, you know, the scheme that he plays in, and, you know, he did struggle in year 2018. He struggled a little bit, which I think clouds it some. I don't know. George, what do you think of that? An explanation would be?
Yeah, I mean, I would say there are a couple of things that that really cloud the way that we perceive a production in terms of just raw box score stats and PFF grade. And the biggest thing there is touchdowns. And what I think the PFF system really works hard to do is not overvalue those, where, you know, I think it just in NFL parlance, like that is just the thing that we always gravitate to, and for obvious reasons, right? But it's, you know, Tre'Davious White did not give up a single touchdown last year, and that's super impressive. I'm not saying it's not, but we are not going to overvalue those relative to other situations that, look, I know there might be a little bit more value in the red zone, but that's not something that is going to be weighted more heavily. So I think that's the big difference there. I mean, look, he graded well last year, and we've talked about how coverage is something that's unstable. I do not have a beef with this pick. You know, coverage is very valuable. Having a guy that has played well in coverage at a young age is great. And you're going to have to take shots, or else you're not going to be able to cover anyone, and you're going to lose football games. Like, you know, like Josh's team at the turn is going to find out they are going to need to cover somebody.
Yeah. Give me a really good 25-year-old established starter cornerback in the NFL, and I mean, he's a second-round pick in our draft.
I think it's a great pick. I don't think it's I don't think you picked him too early, but I also don't think you picked him too late. Like, I'm not shocked he made it this far, but I'm also not shocked that you took him here. He also had 17 penalties. That's something that often.
Yeah, that's something that stood out to me when I was just looking at his charting from last year, that he had a lot of penalties. I mean.
Yeah, and
those are tricky because, you know, when you think about it, assigning value to players, it's not as clean as like an offsides penalty, right, but it's something where you get a majority of the blame for it and their negative plays. Whereas when you do positive things, you distribute the credit more evenly. So it's tricky when you have a lot of negatives on your ledger, because a lot of those get like concentrated onto you. Although there is something
also, for the most part, it is a subjective call by the referee. Mm-hmm. Right? You know,
yeah, no, it's
They weren't, even after they instituted the rule, they weren't really going back and reviewing those and overturning them. But all right, let's move on to the next pick. Sorry.
Yeah, so I'm going to go with the Eagles at 21,
44.
44 on the turn. Sorry, with a player who played a lot like the guy that elevated Tannehill last year. He's older, but I think he's a similar type of player. I'm going to go with Julio Jones for the Eagles here at 44 to pair with Tannehill in that offense.
I'm shocked that Julio Jones is still available.
Yeah. He's older, but he's reliable. He's great. He doesn't score touchdowns, which means he #sucks. But
by the way, Evan has put together the only reduplication of a team, and it's the Bills. And I don't care what happens from now on out. This has been perfect.
Yeah, I know it is. I drafted it. But I would bet that the fantasy people are more in tune with Julio because of the peak age of wide receivers. The peak age, he's starting to stretch it a little bit. He was very good last year. I don't think he had one of his trademark super monster games this past year. But he was still very good. But he did average his fewest yards per target in his entire career. Now, he was still top 5 in yards per route run. So I would say that he definitely has, some juice left in the tank. But this is going to be his age 31 season. And for big receivers in particular, we're starting to reach the crescendo here a little bit. And, we're trying to aim for Super Bowls in a 5-year window. And big receivers tend to not age as gracefully as do smaller receivers.
That's a great point.
All right, so I'm going to continue to screw up the Rams franchise. And look, we've got an older, rundown quarterback that we're gonna throw out there and run right back into the teeth of the defense. Hopefully, try and take this team to the playoffs. We're going to need someone to defend on the back end. Let's take another old, proven defender. Let's take Stephon Gilmore. Let's throw him out there. The secondary is really difficult to predict, especially on a longer time horizon. But in the metrics that I'm able to track that I find that do have some kind of stickiness, he tends to be one that you could say is likely to continue. And one of the big problems here with saying that is I'm assuming a system, that's run by Bill Belichick, that he's operating in with other pieces around him. But we'll do our best. We'll throw him out there and hope that we can pass and stop the pass in LA.
God, that sounds so sweet when you say it.
I'm voting for Josh's Rams team as most likely to be in a rebuild within 3 seasons.
I was thinking the same thing, man. This dude drafted a guy who's out of the league in a 30-year-old cornerback.
That's right.
He's tanking for Trevor maybe somehow already. I don't know if that's part of the calculus, but kudos if it is. I'll give it to you.
I'm sitting here with Jameis. The Bears have Jameis Winston. We took it 19. People are rioting in the streets of Chicago. And so at 46, it only feels right to take a guy to make Jameis look as good as he possibly can and prove myself right because I'm an arrogant GM. And I think there are a couple of really interesting options here. I really like Terry McLaurin. I think he was fantastic. Keenan Allen is still there. He's an injury concern. You've got guys like Stephon Diggs and Brandon Cooks and Amari Cooper. I think there's a lot of value there at wide receiver, and I'm not sure those guys are going to be there when I come back at 83. So I'm going to have to take one now, and I'm going to go with Amari Cooper. I just think the dude is really, really good. Gets open as well as just about anyone in the league, and I think the ability to run routes is the thing that is stickiest with wide receivers. So I'm confident he'll be able to do that for a little while going forward. So Jameis and Amari Cooper.
Balls deflecting off of Cooper and getting more picks for Jameis.
Stop. Please stop.
Come on.
Please stop.
Amari has really elevated Dak's game. I mean, if you look at Dak's splits, ever since he got Amari, halfway through that, what was it, the 2018 season, I mean, Dak has been sensational.
Literally a different quarterback.
They've elevated each other, really. And just that ability to get open. I know that Amari has trouble with, he's had some trouble with injuries, and he's had some trouble with, big physical number one cornerbacks. But, I mean, he can separate from man coverage, and that's really a winning skill, I think, in the NFL. And that's a skill that elevates the production of a quarterback. And I think that when Jameis, is able to see Amari get open, he's going to feel a lot more confident pulling that trigger.
That LASIK, baby.
What happened to Dak? I mean, I think that Amari Cooper is maybe the most underrated receiver in the league.
Ooh. I like that. I've already built a far superior Bears team to what they have currently. Very proud of myself. Timo and the Steelers are up. You have Brady, by the way, on the Steelers, which is
I'm
incredible.
sitting here with Tom Brady, and yeah, he obviously needs a receiver, and Tom Brady wants to get rid of the ball fast, so he needs a receiver who gets open very fast, and so that's why I'm picking a guy who's really good in his get-offs. I'm picking Devonta Adams, who's finally pairing up with an elite quarterback. I had to say it. I had to say that. Sorry.
Had to.
I'm getting so much Jimmy G hate on Twitter, and I love it. Oh, it's fantastic.
You know who's really winning MVP this year is Jimmy Garoppolo.
Oh man, I'm here for it.
I think he's got good odds. You know, as we talked and Kevin and Timo wrote about it, I think a couple weeks ago.
Oh, have you guys been talking about it? Jimmy Garoppolo as an MVP long shot.
Well, because they're probably the San Francisco's probability of checking all the boxes you need to have your quarterback win MVP is relatively high.
What I think is interesting about Jimmy is you just brought up a great point, Evan, which was Dak Prescott with Amari, different QB. Jimmy G with Emmanuel Sanders was the same way, and they played a much tougher schedule down the stretch. And it was, so to me that was really impressive. What I'm interested by, though, is whether that's him just getting comfortable and he's coming back from an ACL, he hadn't run Shanahan's system a whole lot, or whether that was really Emmanuel Sanders setting that offense, taking it to the next level because he could separate, he could get separation. So I am worried, honestly, about what that Niners offense looks like without an ace wide receiver. Maybe Ayuk is that guy, but that would be my concern.
Well, just wait till you see George Kittle healthy in 2020, scoring 13 TDs and no DeForest Buckner. Richard Sherman's a year older. That number 2 cornerback situation was a problem all last year. The fourth down stops that they got last year were ridiculous. Their ability to stop people on fourth down and essentially just, that's a turnover. It doesn't go in the books as a turnover, but that's a turnover. Jimmy Garoppolo is efficient. This is only his second full year under Kyle Shanahan.
Yep.
21-5 in his career as a starter. I know that, you guys don't care about that, but I mean, I think he's going to be highly, highly efficient. And I think that George Kittle is going to have a monster year.
Well, and people rag on his average depth of target, but it wasn't like he was a check down machine. Actually, our buddy Sam Monson wrote a great article about this. It wasn't as if he was checking the ball down. He was just throwing to guys that were wide open that were then gaining 8 yards after the catch. That's just executing a great system well. I think if he's asked to go to the intermediate level a little bit more, there's no reason to believe he couldn't do it. He was very accurate there. So, yeah, man, I'm obviously on the bandwagon. Anyways, I'll shut up now.
All right, me here. This is kind of playing out a little too much like a fantasy football draft here. So, despite the fact that I'd love to pair receiver with Jared Goff here, I'm going to go on the defensive side of the ball, and I'm going to go against the core tenet of pass rush versus coverage and go with the pass rush here. And the guy that I'm going with, it's between Nick Bosa and Myles Garrett for me, and I'm going to go Myles Garrett. Only because I feel like he's the type of player where if he finally has a season where he puts everything together, stays healthy, doesn't hit anyone with a helmet, shows what he can really do on a dominant defense on a team that's winning. Also, I feel like pass rushers get a lot of credit for teams when they're winning, despite the fact that they may not have that much of an impact on it as a quarterback. If all those things can happen, I think he's someone whose stock could be seen as, best player in the NFL. He definitely has Defensive Player of the Year within his range of outcomes. He is a unique talent there. So he's the guy I'm going with.
I think that's a good pick. I was actually between him and Chase Young. Chase Young's a little bit more unknown, whereas, we know Myles Garrett a little bit better. Although we know some of the things we know about him are not great, like the helmet thing. But one thing I was just finished writing an article for 538 about, I was trying to weigh the difference between pressure, the value of pressure on a drive-by-drive basis versus a sack. And we know EPA. Everyone knows EPA, but a lot of people they can't kind of wrap their arms around it, can't put it into context. So I was kind of saying, how often does a drive result in a punt or other outcomes when a sack occurs or when pressure occurs? And obviously, pressure comes in all sorts of different flavors. But Myles Garrett is one of those guys who delivers a lot of pressure on a consistent basis, and he has over his career in things like pass rush win rate and those kind of things. And that typically does turn into sacks. But what's so interesting about these edge rushers and these interior linemen who can rush is that if they don't convert on those sack opportunities in a particular year, which is high variance, they really aren't adding too terribly much value. And that's the big problem with double dipping like I did at the turn on these edge rushers, because if they just happen to not get those sacks, if they're not averaging a sack a game, they really aren't making a huge impact on your team, unfortunately.
Interesting.
That's my TED Talk.
I like it.
Good point.
Next up, so I'm the Falcons. I started with Tua at quarterback. I'm going to pair him with Steph Diggs at age 26. We want to put Tua in the best possible situation to succeed. We want to give him a receiver that sort of combines the strengths of Henry Ruggs and Jerry Jeudy. Stephon Diggs was number 2 in the NFL in yards per route run this past season. He's been a high touchdown scorer, even despite having smaller size. I think he's one of the best route runners in the NFL, one of the best deep ball go-getters in the NFL, and again, want to put Tua in position to succeed.
Like that.
That's a good pick. I'm gonna pair Drew Brees with a guy who's, I think, equally as boomer bust at this point, which is Keenan Allen, who's also a receiver that I think pairs with him well. Drew Brees is boomer bust because of his age, Keenan Allen because of his injury history, but Allen's literally never graded poorly for us and is an underneath player that I think could really mesh well with an older quarterback like Brees.
I thought you were going to pair him with like a 600 pack of protein bars or something. Got excited about that. That's a match.
Waist wraps and pills. Yeah.
Here when you were saying that, I was thinking about this. If Keenan Allen were wide receiver 1 on the Saints, how would we feel about him? Because I don't think he's as durable as Michael Thomas, certainly. But like, do you think? My thought is that he would have similar statistics, at least rate statistics, to Michael Thomas, if not better.
Yep.
Yeah.
No, I think so. I mean, especially
16-game seasons. By the way, he's played like 3 straight 16-game seasons.
Yeah, he has 3 straight seasons with almost over 1,200 yards. He does have the 3 years prior to that where he was injured.
Yeah, his injuries were fluky. It was like he broke his collarbone, like laying out for something.
Yep. Well, in 2016, he ate Marcus Peters' lunch on opening day and then got hurt.
God.
It was just the worst. But
it looked like he was going to catch 18 balls in that game. I mean, I think he had like 9 catches against him in the first half or something like that. But yeah, no, I agree with you that his skill set is very similar to Michael Thomas.
All right, Hermsmeyer, you're up.
Yeah, so this is a tough one. I think there's a lot to be said for Allen Robinson. I think that he's been in a couple bad places in his career, and I think Kirk Cousins could use a guy who can high point the ball, a big body guy. Not particularly a deep threat, but that's not Kirk Cousins' game anyway. He's more a rhythm guy. You got to be on time, and Allen Robinson does have a reputation as being a precise route runner. So I think they would be like peas and carrots. I'm not particularly passionate about this pick, but I think it's a smart one to pair Cousins with Allen Robinson.
I could sense the lack of passion there, to be honest.
Cousins would be Robinson's best quarterback by a country mile in his career.
Oh, yeah.
That's a good pick, I think.
But not as good of a leader as Blake
Hackenberg. No love for Hackenberg.
No.
Or Matt McGloin.
Man, Matt McGloin might be the best one he's had.
McGloin was the only thing McGloin was good at was XFL quotes.
Alrighty, so Jimmy G, I'm looking to put a Super Bowl contender together here in Indianapolis, and so I considered offensive tackle here, but it's interesting. I'm going to leverage the control your own pressure rate and Jimmy G's ability to get rid of the ball quickly. And so I'm not going to overspend on offensive tackle here because I think we can control that a bit. Defensive back, I actually really liked Tre'Davious White. I would have taken Jalen Ramsey here. Obviously, he went way earlier, or Derwin James. So I'm going to go with wide receiver. And I'm going to take a guy that, again, I'm just going to harp on this, I believe will be a good enough route runner to continually get open. And Jimmy G is an accurate thrower of the football. So I'm going to go with scary Terry McLaurin. And I think this is a match made in heaven, in my opinion. I think it's probably not the sexiest one. People will yell at me about it, but I think this duo would be incredible.
So in this draft, Terry McLaurin was just taken as a top 10 receiver in the NFL over the last 5 years, or over the next forthcoming 5 years, right? Where was he? Is he the wide receiver 6?
Yeah, he was not drafted very high.
No, he was drafted very high.
No, in this
No,
draft,
he was taken in the 3rd round last year.
Right. But
Yeah.
that's quite a leap. I'm not saying that it's not deserved. I mean, Terry McLaurin was special as a rookie.
Yeah. Were there were questions coming out from Ohio State about whether he was a product of that offense, right? And
no,
ultimately,
offense actually
he just wasn't that productive. I mean, he just wasn't that productive. I don't think there were like questions. They just didn't use that role. They used.
I mean, is that a question about like you
the
saw
Paris Campbell / whatever role? Those guys were getting all the targets.
We saw that with McCole Hardman in Georgia too, where maybe you play on one of these top teams and your target share isn't that high. You know, Henry Ruggs, even you think about that, but like, is there maybe an amendment we have to make to that? If you play on one of these, you know, super teams and you're not that productive, maybe you go back and look a little bit further and see what the underlying fundamentals are.
I still feel a little bad for not taking Juju because I really like Juju, but I had to go.
Would have been a great fit with Garoppolo too. I mean,
know.
For me, like if you're looking at Garoppolo, you want dudes who can run after catch, right? And that's what Kyle Shanahan is doing. But at the same time, like McLaurin he's sick. So.
Timo, Stafford.
Timo.
Yeah, I'm thinking receiver here, but let me take a gamble that the receiver I'm targeting here will still be available later. So I'm going back to defense, and I'm going with Marlon Humphrey, who is basically Tre'Davious White, but just better.
That's a great fake laugh by Evan.
That was an incredible laugh.
All right, I'm just gonna make this. I don't know. I mean, you guys, like, I realize we want to be contrarian here, but I guess I'm checking here. Like, no one else took Nick Bosa, so I guess I'll just take the guy who would probably go after quarterbacks. Like, if we're ignoring quarterbacks, this guy would be like top 5 pick. I would assume.
Can you pair Baker Mayfield and Nick Bosa on the same team? Is this allowed?
Hey, other side, both sides, different sides of the ball. A coming together here. So yeah, so I'm just gonna go Bosa. I think it's a slam dunk sort of pick that you can really, and I'll look for receivers later rather than taking guys who are okay as rookies, but we don't even know what they're going to be going on. We could be a lot more confident someone like Nick Bosa is going to be the player who we saw as a rookie than AJ Brown or Terry McLaurin or one of these guys is going to take that second step as a second year player.
That's interesting because I love Nick Bosa. My question would be, did he benefit from having such a complete defense around him? In other words, great coverage on the back end, a lot of other great players on the defensive line. And you're going to have to, at some point, pay this guy dramatically, and just an enormous contract. I think that's something that I'm considering too, which is like edge defenders, in my opinion, are just overpaid dramatically. So I don't know. Those are the two things I would think about.
Was Bosa even the best defensive lineman on the 49ers last year? I mean, I think there's room for debate there. I don't know. Armstead had a good season.
Yeah, I mean, again, like we have our prior on him, right, as being an outstanding college player. So I think that builds into giving us more confidence about what we saw him do. And he was a rookie, right? So even edge players who were fairly productive when they first get into the league can continue to get better. So for those reasons, I'm pretty confident of who he's going to end up being. And I just feel like at this point, when you get a guy that young at that premium of a position, who, you know, nothing says you can't trade these guys later. Also, so
you're already trading him. Okay.
Thanks for the D Ford love, Josh.
Takes him in the second round. Talks about trading him. You know,
that's confidence right there.
We're justifying the Jimmy Graham's. Oh, we can cut him after 1 year.
Right. It's a great start of a relationship.
Right?
I'm talking about more like rather than paying them eventually.
Sure. Okay.
So I think I'm up, right?
Yep. Browns and Carson Wentz.
Yeah. So, you know, if Carson Wentz thought that Zach Ertz was good, wait till he gets a hold of Mark MF and Andrews.
Ooh.
The field, who his route run over the first 2 seasons of his career has just been absolutely insane. I think it's the most yards per route run of any player in the NFL, regardless of position. He can't block a lick, but who cares? You know, the Ravens are so smart about using him. I think he played like 41% of their snaps last year. He's only going to play on passing downs. You know, we understand that we're going to have to backfill offensive linemen. Maybe we'll take some older guys that we can get cheap later. But we're going to stick Mark Andrews in the same offense as Carson Wentz, and we're just going to smash all the haters.
I think you nailed it, though, that the Ravens used him perfectly. So hard for me to disentangle the player from the scheme and the surrounding talent. That is, you're a better man than me if you can do it.
This to me was the most surprising pick, honestly. I don't know how you guys feel.
Well, speaking of better men than me, Aaron Rodgers is going to have to deal with a non-wide receiver here again. And that was the only reason I picked him, so that I could troll him in round 2. Let's go with – I'm going to be a little bit of a homer here, but I do think that this guy is more than the sum of the parts and on par with some of the great back 7 players in the league. I'm going to go with Tyrann Mathieu.
Does age not scare you there?
It does, you know, but we, you know, he entered the league in 13? So he's near his 30s, right? But like, I don't know. An injury history does scare me, but I do think when you're looking at, you know, players on defense, I do think that you need a guy who can elevate all the players around him. And I think Mathieu has a record of doing that. And a guy who can play a lot of different positions. What's that?
He's 28. I should not call him old.
Pretty old. In the great words of Timo Risky, wasn't even on my list. You know?
Hey. I thought about picking him next or in the 3rd round, but yeah, Eric was faster. Damn it.
I like Honey Badger. I think I would go younger though, and you know, honestly, I'm not even certain about this guy's future, but I liked him at the time, end of the 1st round when the Browns took him. Jabril Peppers, I think, is a good guy to put on the team with Joe Burrow, a young team and a team that might last the 5 years that I'm controlling these Cardinals. So he is going to be my pick here at what pick are we at here?
57?
57, the 57th overall.
Wait, did Dave Gettleman take over your selection here? That is, I would say, bold. That's bold.
That is bold.
Fortune favors the bold. So,
is that a real quote?
I don't know.
Yeah,
George just made it up, but then he's used it a lot, so it still counts.
We'll go with that. When you get the tattoo, Evan, let me know. Just get a little TM there.
Okay.
All right, the Panthers took Dak Prescott, what seems like 7 years ago, at number 7. Derek Brown, shockingly, still on the board for them at the turn at 58. But I'm going to resist temptation here. So we've seen the interesting thing about Dak is even though I took him at 7, I think this second pick is really important. It needs to be a player that is going to help elevate his game. Amari is obviously not there. I already took him, but a guy that I mentioned just a little bit ago, who I think last year, I think we're way too much prisoners of the moment with Juju, and so I'm going to take Juju Smith-Schuster. And he's super young. The dude is really good. I think he's also a really good dude, and that doesn't happen quite often at the wide receiver position. Dak and Juju, to me, are probably players that will never play together in the NFL, but man, I wish they did, because I think they're going to be a really cool combo.
Timo?
So that's my last pick on the broadcast.
Yeah, you get to just go take a pee finally after this.
Yeah. Yeah, so Matt Ryan, he never had a defense. Give him a defense for rounds. And I'm going to shock the world right now and actually take pass rusher. Give me TJ Watt at this point.
As far as pass rushers last year, the best,
Yeah.
You can make an argument he was the best, so
yeah,
that's a good pick.
And he's young, so that's why I'm taking him.
That's interesting. Joey Bosa's still there, Von Miller, Khalil Mack.
I mean, Matt Ryan was sitting on the bench for 4 years now and had to watch Rick Beasley rushing the passer. Give him a good pass rusher once in his career.
Yep, it's good.
All right, I'm going to wrap out my picks here with someone who I think may be slightly higher rated at the safety position than Jabril Peppers on some boards, and that's Jamal Adams. So I have to know this Jabril Peppers. I seriously, do you have some inside info, Josh, that you can let us know?
Josh is sitting on a magnum opus article that is coming out on 538 2 months.
I really have to so anyway.
Josh has the tracking data for when he was off the field in Greg Williams'
defense.
None of us have that.
Transverse fracture was overrated.
Okay, so what I'll say about Jamal Adams is, remember he went what was it, 5th overall, where it could have been Mahomes or Watson or one of those guys. So that looks great, but if you think about it, I don't think people are like, that's such a horrible pick. So for a player of a position like safety to still be viewed in that sort of way, still be worth, I think he's probably worth a first-round pick in a trade with a contract. I don't know. I feel like he's really one of the pieces that you can't find anywhere. A guy like that. So I'm going to go Jamal Adams.
Very nice. Evan, the Giants. Fans have been waiting with bated breath here.
Yes, and the Giants started off with Deshaun Watson. So made it a very difficult decision. I'm looking at defensive players and trying to, talk myself into some of these guys. Joey Bosa is very, very tempting. DeForest Buckner, Chris Jones, Khalil Mack. I mean, there are some ballers still left on defense. Kind of overlooking interior offensive linemen. I think that some of the left tackles that are still available are very, very tempting, and even some of the young tight ends. But I think I'm going to give Deshaun Watson DK Metcalf at age 22. Deshaun Watson does something that is, very, very special in his ability to sort of create time for himself. And sometimes it results in 17-yard sacks, but man, he can make big plays. And who can cover DK Metcalf for more than 2.5 seconds? I mean, this dude is lightning fast. He's, very, very physical. He stayed healthy in his first season. I think he got better every single game. And I think that the Seahawks coaching staff would even agree, because if you see the progress of his route tree over the course of his rookie season, which, at Ole Miss, he only ran routes on the left side of the offense. And he started that way in Seattle, but he continually progressed, I think, game over game, and I think he got better, and it was really remarkable to see his progression. Again, he's only 22 years old. Pairing him with Deshaun Watson, LFG, let's fucking go.
I like that.
I don't. I think I would take his teammate over him.
I thought about going with Lockett, but I think we could get him in the third round. So it's a game theory thing, Herms.
All right.
No, I like Metcalf a lot. I mean, if I was going to go receiver here after the 5,000 receivers that have been drafted so far, he would have been my guy. I was hoping he'd make it back around to the next one, but didn't happen.
All right,
I mean, he really does look like Josh Gordon or someone like that. I'm not even like, I know that comp was out there a lot, but I mean, he's a stud. If he can get some volume this year, I think some interesting things can happen.
Evan has an appreciation for chiseled physique, and that should not be underrated here. Tremendous pick.
I'm going to go with who I think is one of, if not the most underrated players in the NFL here for Russell Wilson and the Lions at 62. I'm going to go with Robert Woods.
I thought you were going to say Jarvis Landry. I was so excited.
Robert Woods is quietly one of the best wide receivers in the NFL. Doesn't drop the football. Has played with quarterbacks who I don't think are very good and has still been productive. And I think he'd be a great pick here.
All right. Well, then, since Tyler Lockett was not chosen, I'm going to screw up Evan's game theory here.
Well, hang on here. Can I trade up?
Lamar Jackson and Tyler Lockett seemed like a really nice match. I wouldn't even be averse to taking Marquise Brown and just putting the actual two back together on my team. But Tyler Lockett, I think, adds a little bit more in the way of route running versatility. So we'll go ahead and go with it.
So I am very tempted to put Marquise Hollywood Brown on the same field as Patrick Mahomes. The tough thing with Mahomes for me is that I just want to put up 100 points a game with him. But, I also think I can probably get away with not having invested as much in the receiving core and maybe investing a little bit more on the defensive side of the ball. And there are some really good defenders out there. So this is really tricky for me. I am going to go with the final pick on this live broadcast. We're going to continue drafting. You can follow along on the Google Sheet if you have been already. If you haven't, the link is in the YouTube description, and we'll draft the full 4 rounds in this draft. So in the second round, pick 64 with Patrick Mahomes already on the squad, I am going to go with Eddie Jackson, defensive back. We're going to hit some deep shots regardless of who our receivers are, and we just need to be able to stop a few, and we'll win every game. So that's how I'm going to close it out.
I mean, Eddie Jackson will probably catch 800 yards with Patrick Mahomes at quarterback.
There you go. There you go. I'm going to play him on both sides of the ball. So that's it. We managed to only be 35 minutes over. I thought we could do this an hour and a half. We probably could have, but this was fun, guys. Thanks for joining. Any final words, anybody?
We won. We await your draft grades, which I'm sure will be stellar. Yeah, as long as Herbs comes in last, then I'm okay.
We should grade Twitter comments on this draft.
Oh God.
For the next PFF forecast, George.
Yeah, that'd be great. I mean, I need to collect them all regardless.
I like that PFF Moo predicted that Eddie Jackson would actually have more receiving yards with Patrick Mahomes than Sammy Watkins ever has.
Well,
that's Super Bowl champion wide receiver and Lizard King Sammy Watkins to you, man.
That's incredible. I might take Marquise Brown right here at the turn. I'm going to think about it. I'm going to take a pee because honestly, I have needed to pee for the entirety of the second round. And so thanks guys for tuning in. Thank you all for coming. This was a lot of fun. Appreciate it all. Of course, Josh Hermsmeyer 538, Evan Silva, establishedrun.com, Timo, Kev, and Eric at pff.com. Thank you guys for tuning in. We'll see you guys later. Peace out.
Bye.